Okay, we'll let some people come in. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our Smart Growth webinar series featuring Reconnecting Trenton's Riverfront campaign. My name is Taylor McFarland, and I'm the Conservation Program Manager for the Sierra Club New Jersey chapter. The Sierra Club is the oldest and largest environmental nonprofit in the country, with almost 4 million members nationwide. In New Jersey, smart growth projects are especially important since we are the most densely populated and one of the most overdeveloped states in the country. The Sierra Club supports smart growth because it protects open spaces, reduces greenhouse gases and pollution, conserves natural resources, and creates healthier, more connected communities. Next slide, Matt. The Sierra Club now has a smart growth and urban infill policy and guidance document available, which is helpful for advocates, government officials, and more looking to implement smart growth practices. And I will provide a link for that guidance in the chat shortly. Next slide. So this is our second webinar in our smart growth series, highlighting projects across the state that work to reduce sprawl, improve community health, connect to green spaces, and provide affordable housing in a sustainable manner. We are very excited to hear from our speakers, Matt Lawson, Assistant Planning Director for Mercer County, and Sabrina Rodriguez, Campaign Manager for the Reconnecting Trenton's Riverfront campaign on their project for Route 29. If you have questions, please click on the form. We will put that link in the chat. So click that link, submit your questions, and we will do our best to answer them at the end of the presentation. Matt, Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Taylor. Hi, everyone. I'm extremely excited to be here tonight. I appreciate you all for, joining us on a Wednesday night, and Sierra Club for hosting this important conversation. As Taylor said, I'm the campaign manager for Reconnecting Trenton's Riverfront, but this campaign is supported by New Jersey Future, a statewide nonprofit, where I serve officially as Advocacy and Government Affairs Manager. But let's talk about what we came here for, smart growth in Trenton. Matt, do you want to introduce yourself now? You're on mute.
Typically muted. Sure. My name is Matthew Lawson. I'm the Assistant Planning Director for the County of Mercer, and I am the project manager for the county's Route 29 Boulevard project. And I will say much more about the project as we proceed. 21 years at the county as a transportation planner, and very concerned about redevelopment and smart growth and development, particularly in the city of Trenton. So we can't say it all here, but we're gonna try and share a lot. Sabrina, back to you.
Yeah, great. Next slide, please. So, Trenton, New Jersey. It's the capital, but despite its status, it's experienced decades of underinvestment compared to other areas. The city has about 90,000 residents, mostly Black and Hispanic, with a median household income less than half of Mercer County's. A third of the residents don't have access to a car, making transportation one of the biggest issues. The city also faces layered equity and health burdens. Every single census tract qualifies as disadvantaged under the Justice 40 initiative criteria. Pollution and traffic exposure are high, and residents face elevated rates of asthma, and other chronic conditions. In some cases, life expectancy is 20 years shorter than in nearby town of Princeton. Yes, 20 years less, let that sink in. On top of this, a lot of the land downtown is owned by the state or the county. So the city itself has limited control over what happens, especially with this project of Route 29, because, for example, the state doesn't even have to consult for some things with the local zoning board. But despite those challenges, the community sees the riverfront as an opportunity, a place to reconnect neighborhoods, improve health, and celebrate Trenton's history and culture, and definitely drive revitalization. This is an image of what Trenton used to look like in the first half of the 20th century on the left. We could see a city defined by a connected Delaware River waterfront. You can see expansive waterfront parks, grand government buildings, and interconnected neighborhoods throughout. But in the second half of the 20th century, it brought urban renewal, auto-centric design, and Route 29 that we still have today. A high-speed freeway that separated the community from its riverfront, prioritized commuters over residents, destroyed neighborhoods, and left a sea of surface parking lots and single-use office buildings. Next slide. And here's where we step in trying to gather the support to achieve a more connected Trenton. And we've done it through the Reconnecting Trenton's Riverfront campaign, a campaign aimed to reconnect Trenton to its riverfront by turning the corridor into a pedestrian safety boulevard that reconnects the city to its riverfront. It includes expanding green spaces, improving mobility, and enhancing access to the recreational areas along the Delaware River. These efforts are going to help lower emissions, improve air and water quality, and just bolster climate resilience along the riverfront. By reimagining this key area, the campaign seeks to strengthen community ties, boost downtown economy, and create a more vibrant Trenton for all. This campaign is led by a diverse group of partners, local government, business leaders, and residents with the support of New Jersey Future. Next slide. So, how do we accomplish this? And how do we even envision a future without a divisive highway? So we started with the basics by reimagining this as a boulevard, which replaces dangerous freeway with a boulevard. It could enhance safety for pedestrians and cyclists by reducing traffic speed, reconnecting neighborhoods, and building opportunity for green spaces. And I do want to show some national and international examples of projects that have already achieved this reconnection with smart growth principles. So we have here the DC Water headquarters. This is a new LEED Platinum headquarters of DC Water. It raises the landscape 1 foot above the 500-year floodplain for additional protection. It includes technological innovations, including energy efficient systems and a high performance facade. And it provides an example of a government entity constructing a sustainable building and merging their headquarters with the waterfront. It has a green roof, so it definitely uses some green infrastructure for stormwater runoff, and they have educational programming inside and outside of the building, so you can learn more about their rainwater, their cistern for rainwater capture. So then we're going to talk about Cincinnati and the John G. and Phyllis W. Small Riverfront Park. That's a mouthful. This project is unique. It's a public and private partnership. It's bridging that life downtown Cincinnati with the Ohio River. The project enhances green space. It has multi-use pathways and connections to key bridges and sports venue. You can see there, I think that's a baseball and football stadium. It's very big, 23 acres, and it's transformed parking lots and industrial buildings, and it has a regional economic impact of $12 billion, and it's created more than 5,000 permanent jobs. So definitely something to strive for. Next. And this is an international example. This one's in the Netherlands. I'm not going to attempt to say the name, but you can read it there and maybe look more information up online. But this specific case, prioritizes flood protection, mobility, and climate adaptation. And so it also adds more than 6,000 dwelling units. It has a large park that runs along that main canal that you can see over there. And it connects to other green areas in the city by offering cycle paths or bicycle paths. And it also provides a first zone of flood protection. It also has additional infiltration zones near the residents that provide an additional layer of climate proofing. Next slide. So this project envisions a more thriving space for Trenton's residents and businesses. It's restoring waterfront access again by replacing the high-speed freeway. It's providing a reconnected neighborhood with better walkability, bike lanes, and safer crossings. Being mindful that, again, the majority of Trenton residents don't have access to a car. And we can help drive economic growth by creating a destination that supports small businesses and tourism as well, all while improving public health and environmental sustainability. It is very important to note that this is a 10-year project at the minimum from now that we've already started, and Matt's going to talk a little bit more about where we're at right now until the moment this is built. We have a campaign because this project needs sustained support, and it needs to also create and celebrate smaller wins because folks won't be able to see shovels on the ground for this specific portion of the project for quite a bit. So therefore, Mercer County and the city have also taken the initiative to work on some smaller projects in the meantime, such as fixing up the old wharf, and working on some streets near the project alongside some other like Vision Zero related initiatives. So that's why it's also important to not only have the engineering aspect of this project going, but also the sustained support. And that's why we're running, New Jersey Future is running an advocacy campaign. And I appreciate you listening to me. Matt, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Sabrina. That was a really nice introduction to really the aspirations that we have for the waterfront. As Sabrina said, you know, in the first half of the 20th century, there was a wonderful park along the river, Stacy Park. And when the New Jersey Department of Transportation, the state of New Jersey, proposed building the Route 29, a limited access highway along the waterfront, there were objections from the city, there were objections from the county, there were objections on a lot of fronts. And so that goes back to the 1950s, before the facility was built. The project that we were working on really had its beginnings in the late 80s, when the state of New Jersey created the Capital City Redevelopment Corporation, the CCRC, And the CCRC was designed to work with the city and the county and other key stakeholders, with the state, obviously, since it's the capital city, to identify a plan for redeveloping, revitalizing the downtown. And so the concept of converting Route 29 into a boulevard really dates from that 1989 Renaissance plan from the CCRC. That plan was updated in 2023, but most importantly, NJDOT, under an earlier governor, a different Department of Transportation, a different commissioner of the Department of Transportation, had its eyes on smart growth in a very significant way, on the relationship between transportation and land use. And so in the early 2000s, two studies were executed. One was essentially a concept development study. What would it look like to create a boulevard through downtown Trenton? How would we convert 29 into an urban street again? And then in 2009, the NJDOT finished the feasibility assessment. That's the image on your right, the first cover sheet of that. And that was what we would now call preliminary engineering. So the stage we're in right now in the current project delivery process is concept development. Concept development is basically where you come up with the idea for the transportation improvement. Later phases, preliminary engineering, basically looking at the concept and sharpening pencils to see really how it would work. Then final design is acquiring right-of-way. It is figuring out where the construction vehicles are going to be parked, maintenance and protection of traffic, and the bid specifications, the bid documents to go to construction. And construction is its own challenge. Where we are now is in the middle of that local concept development process, and this is a county effort. We came at this as a cooperative project with the city of Trenton, with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the IIJA or bill from the federal government under the Biden administration. There was a Reconnecting Communities program where projects like this were being supported by the federal government, by the Federal Highway Administration. And the county agreed to be the sponsor for a City of Trenton push, restarting this project, trying to get it going again under that Reconnecting Communities program. The county was the formal sponsor. We submitted an application. We were not successful in getting the grant, but the next year we had a bridge project slip. These are the formal terms in the capital program process for the federal government. Basically, we couldn't go to construction in the year that we wanted to go to construction. And so we had our entire federal formula allocation of about $5 million to apply to projects that were not ready for construction. We didn't have anything shovel ready. And so we put that money into a variety of local concept development projects, planning projects, to develop ideas that have been around for a long time in many cases. Several of those were for the city of Trenton, directly for the city of Trenton, connecting Calhoun Street. You'll see the Calhoun Street Bridge in some of my later slides. Calhoun Street basically dodges over and joins another street, causing one of the most congested intersections in Mercer County and limiting access to a commercial corridor for residents of the city of Trenton. So pushing that street through, acting on a master plan element from the city, from Ewing Township next door, and from the county to build a new roadway is something that we're advancing with that federal formula money. I'm also working on a project to improve signal coordination and convert some of the traffic signals in the city of Trenton to stop controlled or mini roundabouts. But this project is the other major project that I'm leading to look at converting Route 29 into an urban boulevard. The study area is shown on this map. basically we're focused on the downtown. Off the screen to the right, Route 29 emerges from a tunnel and a connection to Interstate 195 that runs out to the shore from the city. And to the left off the map, the limited access highway continues northbound to the intersection with 295, the Interstate 295 north of the city. So this was seen as part of the interstate loop that would surround the city of Trenton and provide access. And that interstate loop contributed to the disinvestment, the white flight from the city of Trenton, and some of its financial troubles today. Its lack of connection with other parts of the county, and the increase of suburban sprawl growth that is one of the things that we were trying to fight with this project. So we have two major efforts that I think are of interest to the Sierra Club, and one is smart growth itself, right? How do we provide infill development in an urban center where the infrastructure already exists? How do we take this sea of parking in the center of Trenton and turn it into a mixed-use development center? So what you're seeing here is a part of the Department of Labor building and a helipad. There's a number of infrastructure uses there, but you can see in the 2024 photo that parking area is much less used by state employees because the state is allowing people to work 3 days a week from home. This is a tremendous smart growth change in our use of land and our use of our facilities. We're pushing back on that now as a society. More and more corporations are calling workers back to work. That's not yet the case for the state of New Jersey. But the other thing that we're focused on is resilience in this project. And this is really important. When the 2005 and 2009 studies were done, basically it was looking at the possibility of developing on these sites without any hindrance. Basically, the hindrance was money. And I'll get to that in a moment. The main challenge that we have from a resilience perspective is the New Jersey flood hazard area rules. And this graphic shows the inland alignment for the boulevard into basically diverting from its current riverfront alignment into this redevelopment area, the surface parking lots, with the internal road network that would support that infill development. And the flood hazard zone. Basically, the Delaware River floods. We know this. It happens from time to time. We've had bridges wash out on the Delaware. We've had this area, most of this area, flood in the past. And so with the flood hazard rules, there are pretty strict restrictions on what we can do. And I'll mention the two that we're trying to design the project around and come up with a development plan. Basically, what we need to do in order to develop the parking lot parcels is we need to find cut. DEP says we must achieve zero net fill. And so that means in order to raise the elevation of these areas that are developable, we have to get the fill for that area from closer to the river. And I'll show you the consequences of that for the designs that we're arriving at now. The other challenge that we face is fiscal. What I've tried to do in this slide is suggest where the tax money goes and where it comes from. And one of the problems in New Jersey is a grand deal on the part of the state and the municipalities back in the early 1970s that left local governments in New Jersey reliant solely on property tax revenue for their operations. And so for the county and for the city of Trenton, we rely on our tax base. Obviously the county, because it's much more diverse, there's some high value towns, Princeton among them, West Windsor. Our tax base is more stable than that of the city of Trenton. Sabrina has already talked about some of the issues with the city of Trenton, and those are ultimately largely due to home rule and the reliance on the city, the forced reliance on the city on its property taxes, on drawing property taxes from an impoverished population. So there's a desperate struggle within Trenton, within the other older cities in the state of New Jersey, to try to balance their budgets and make things work, to achieve development, to achieve improvement in the quality of life. The federal government and the state of New Jersey, on the other hand, have a number of different revenue sources, ways of taking our tax money, the gas tax for both, income taxes for both. And what we hope for this project is for some of that money to come raining down on the city of Trenton in projects like the Reconnecting Communities program, the Protect program for infrastructure resilience. There are a number of federal funding programs, discretionary funding programs, that may be used to fund this project. With the current federal administration, there are very significant cutbacks in a lot of the things that we hope to accomplish. As Sabrina said, this is a long-term process. What we need to do, and let me go back a few slides. What we need to do in order to move out of the concept development phase into preliminary engineering is to identify a funding source to get us through the design phase, preliminary engineering, final design, and through construction. And the last cost estimate that we had for the inland alignment of Route 29, based on the 2009 plan, was about $200 million. There's been inflation since then. There's been other cost increases. That cost, to my knowledge, did not include the infrastructure costs to create the local street grid, the other infrastructure that we would need to put plumbing pipes, water supply and water drain, electricity into this sea of parking to be able to support development. So there's a lot of costs that are involved in this project. We are hoping for a change in administration that will enable us to get commitment from the state ultimately to redevelop those parcels, to build the highway, to build the boulevard. So the project goals for the current phase, for the county's project, and this is the county's project. Let me say that when we were working on the Reconnecting Communities grant, the discretionary grant, we got a letter of support from the commissioner of the Department of Transportation, basically supporting our effort to rebuild restart the boulevard project. And on the basis of that letter of support, we're proceeding with this project. These project goals are very similar to what Sabrina outlined. The stimulating economic development on the surface parking lots is really the #1 goal. And that's not so much the Department of Transportation as it is the state's Department of Treasury, which owns the property, which makes decisions about parking for state employees. And we are hoping that we can get some concessions, if not from the Department of Transportation, from the Treasury Department, to have some control of development and relaunch this. There's so many open questions. There's so many difficult things. We want to improve traffic connections to the downtown street network. That's not necessarily improving traffic on Route 29 itself. For many years, and this project fell away after the early 2000s, because we had a new commissioner of the Transportation Department come in, and the attitude was, we have a working highway. Why would we want to destroy a working highway that supplies our workers to the downtown? We're hoping for a sea change on that front too. Increased open space and active recreation. I'll get to that in a bit in my later slides. Improved pedestrian access to and along the Delaware River. Again, later slides. And these have to do largely with those resilience goals. So the project scope, and this is the scope for the consultant that we're working with, Stantec, is to evaluate the concepts developed in the early 2000s. They got quite far along, and so we want to see if those still work, especially with the changes in the flood hazard area. but we want to look at changes in traffic volumes and patterns. Traffic, that study in 2009 was estimating traffic growth out to 2025. We actually have experienced less traffic growth on 29 and in the downtown than was predicted back then. And so traffic volumes, this is something that is really uncertain, especially with there's a new microtransit system in the city of Trenton. There are other changes that we can expect in the transit system with New Jersey Transit. But how can we provide development and resources for people so that they don't have to drive? This is a key element of smart growth. So environmental regulations, that the flood hazard rules, climate change and resiliency, again, the flood hazard rules and potential for increased flood hazard with significant rain events upstream. What are the fiscal and economic benefits? How does development in this area redound to and improve development opportunities and the status, the ability of the city of Trenton to grow and prosper? And likewise, the community and social impacts of that development. We have a public outreach effort and working with New Jersey Future, and the project that Sabrina is leading is key to that. New Jersey Future is doing a tremendous job in providing outreach and expanding our contacts. Where we are now is close to selecting a preliminary preferred alternative, and this must be done before we can exit this concept development stage. We have to know, what do we want to do? And that's the preferred alternative. And then what do we need to do? What's it going to cost to get through preliminary engineering? So those are the responsibilities of Stantec Engineering, the consultant that we have for the project. So here, this is an image of the two alternatives that rose to the top in the early 2000s. The inland alignment was the preferred alternative, and it was preferred primarily because it enabled NJDOT to keep the highway open, to keep Route 29 open while the boulevard was being built. And so there would be less disruption, there would be less of a hassle when the traffic had to be moved over to the inland alignment. Basically, back in that day, looking at the whole area as developable, there was a marginal park along the river in both instances, but a much larger development area. The alternative that we're looking at now is there's two of them, and again, the task of this project is to look at those earlier alternatives that NJDOT spent so much time and so much money developing to see if they still work. And so, like then, we have an inland alternative and a waterfront alternative. And where we are now is essentially this array for the waterfront alternative. You can see Route 29 basically on its existing footprint. And the consequence of the no net fill rule for the new stormwater regulations means that we have to cut from areas that are below that flood hazard zone, so that we have fill to enable economic development on the surface parking lots. That means taking other surface parking lots and some of the certainly the road infrastructure that's along the river and eliminating that. And so in order to achieve the cut that we need, basically we would be taking the elevated portions of Route 29, we would be taking other areas. And so these infill blocks would essentially become more or less detention basins. We would have to slope the interior street roads down to, or the interior streets down to Route 29 along the riverfront. The stormwater rules allow us to maintain the existing highway on its current floodable elevation. So we wouldn't have to raise the highway in this scenario. We would have to raise the elevation of the inland street grids. Because the other rule that's important is the dry access for any residential development. Anybody in a residential dwelling has to be able to walk out on the street in case of a hazard. So the waterfront alternative is one. The other is the inland alternative. And this, again, follows more or less the alignment of the earlier inland alternative, and proposes a similar street grid. But the advantage of this, from my perspective, is that it creates a much larger area within the city of Trenton for active recreation and passive recreation development, basically. Restoring Stacy Park. The park that Sabrina showed in that early slide was basically along the waterfront here, the Capitol Park. So the state Capitol building is here. And the Stacy Park was basically this area down to the river. So this alternative, the inland alternative, allows for much more park development. Now, it's important for me to say that the project that we're doing with Stantec is really about the road infrastructure. That's their task. We are not doing park planning. We're not doing any sort of programming or thinking about how this space might be used in either alternative, right? We know that it would have to be vacant because it's got to be floodable. It essentially becomes part of the floodplain. But that would be a task for another study or an ancillary study. The last step in the concept development process is to select a preferred alternative, a preliminary preferred alternative. It's preliminary because once we get to preliminary engineering, then we have to make sure that that concept really works. And so there's the possibility of changing and adjustments in PE to the concept that comes out of concept development. We are very active in this phase in figuring out what the traffic impacts are, and I can talk about those in some depth if we have time. I want to allow 15 minutes or so for question and answer. This is nearly the last slide that we have to show. But basically, the boulevard would be a boulevard. Sabrina showed a cross section earlier, 2 lanes in each direction with a side path along the edge, along the riverside. The interior streets are laid out with parking protected bike lanes. There is one street here that we have proposed as one way southbound, continuing Warren Street. So you'll see a Warren Street, South Warren Street label here, and a South Warren Street label here, because Warren used to run right through the heart of downtown Trenton. So currently, a segment of that from Market Street over to an underpass under Route 1 and the Northeast Corridor rail line. That is Trent Place because of the historic Trent House, one of the earliest structures surviving from the earliest days of the city of Trenton, historic landmark. But this 5-point intersection is just very, very hard to deal with from a traffic perspective, especially given the constrained geometry. There's also frontage issues with the taxation and labor buildings right next door. And so this segment of the street basically either has to be closed or has to be turned into one way. We just don't have enough width there to make it work out with the rest of the grid. We've proposed a roundabout. We're not sure from a traffic perspective. We're still very actively analyzing traffic. We don't know if this roundabout is going to work. We have real concerns about pedestrian crossings because this would be a major pedestrian crossing to the park area north of the Assunpink. This is Assunpink Creek. But the city of Trenton is planning a string of parks along the Assunpink that we hope that this development can tie into. Other accesses would be provided at the street crossings to get down to the potential park area. There are, wow, I could talk about so much more of this. I can't talk too much more because we have to close down our show and share and open the floor for questions and answers. There are 2 QR codes on the screen here, the one on the right for you. is from New Jersey Future's Reconnecting Trenton's Riverfront campaign. And that QR code will take you to the Reconnecting Trenton Riverfront webpage and the opportunity to sign up for Facebook and Instagram posts. The one on the left is to the county's project page for this. There are thousands of pages of documents from former studies and from our current study. We have our existing conditions report, which probably runs with its appendices to 1,300 pages, something like that. There's a ton of information on that website, including some of the earlier studies. Sabrina, would you like to add anything at this point?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that reconnecting Trenton to its riverfront, this is again a 10+ year commitment. The community is the forefront, but we do need statewide support. We all want to see our capital city reimagined and thriving. So again, like Matt said, there's multiple things you can do to support this project. We have that petition going along on our website, and you can sign up. And if you're feeling super inspired, all campaigns also need sustained funding, so we do have a donation link. But talk to everyone you know. Show them our beautiful YouTube video that's up on our website that explains what the project is all about. And when the new governor of New Jersey comes, whomever that may be, you can also request that on day one they commit to funding this project. And immediate next steps, we are also hosting a meeting next Wednesday, October 1st, at Mercer County Community College, the Trenton campus, where we'll be taking comments on the project alternatives alongside Matt and the county as well. It is basically that one big chance where everyone gets to make their voices heard. So you're all welcome. I do want to say thank you to everyone that joined, and thank you for the Sierra Club, to the Sierra Club as well.
Indeed. So, Taylor, we've tried to leave some time for Q&A.
Yeah, and Sabrina, Matt, this is fantastic, especially for a lot of us who go to Trenton. It would be incredible to see a park, go to a park, and just the community benefit and the affordable housing benefit. We're very excited about this. This recording or this webinar is recorded, so I will follow up with an email of all of this information on the slides, the recording, and Sabrina and Matt, any other useful information for the participants today. So questions, yes, I think some big questions is traffic. Can you tell us a little bit about the impacts, the changes in the highway will have to traffic flow?
Sure. Well, what we're proposing here is to turn a limited access freeway, a limited access highway into an urban boulevard. And doing that entails traffic lights. We have to enable people to cross the street, and that requires stopping the traffic. So we are in the midst of doing that analysis right now. We've got preliminary results, and those preliminary results show that putting these traffic lights in will add about 5 minutes of travel time to traversing the city on the boulevard compared to the limited access highway. So this section of the highway, people are going 60 miles an hour. And if we slow that down to 35, then there's going to be slower traffic, simply regardless of traffic lights. But the traffic lights, in order to provide pedestrian crossings, in order to provide access to these side streets that are delivering traffic to the road, the traffic lights have to operate and slow down traffic. So the comparison with the 2009 study, we're still trying to figure out, it was a different firm that did that analysis, but their analysis with a similar array of traffic lights basically said about 2.5 minutes of delay would be added to travel time on the boulevard. Now, if you're used to driving into Trenton from 195 and coming up 29, you are probably well aware that traffic backs up at Cass Street. So Cass Street is the beginning of the southern end of our project area. And the traffic light there is basically a meter. It meters the traffic that flows into Route 29 northbound. And what we're looking at with a new signal at Calhoun Street, and this is to be determined. We're still doing the analysis, but the signal at Calhoun Street would essentially meter traffic southbound, and that metering of traffic in signals on either side of the roundabout should enable the roundabout to work. A roundabout is really challenged if there's no opportunity, if there's a continuous flow of traffic, there's no opportunity for the side street to make its way in. And so understanding those traffic flows and the effect of those signals on metering traffic, that's what we need to dig into further with the study that we're doing now. We think that back in 2009, that traffic report showed a very significant drop in volume at Calhoun Street. And what we think that is because of increased delay on Route 29, people have the opportunity to select other routes into the city. So just off the screen here to the north on the other side of the Cure Arena is Route 129, which is a direct connection between Interstate 195 and Route 1. And so Route 129 is also relatively congested. It's very high volume with collecting that traffic off of Route 1 out to 195. That's another route in. Route 206 also comes in from 195. West State Street used to be the thoroughfare through the city of Trenton. And so how do we distribute traffic across the network? How do we provide wayfinding? How do we help people move through a complex city network? This is a typical urban problem. Many cities face this. The city of Trenton has particular troubles because of Route 1 and the Northeast Corridor rail line that have cut the city for decades. The DNR towpath, the DNR State Park Canal, which you see in the upper left of the screen here, that's been another historic barrier to crossings and to transportation in the city, making it a little bit more difficult to lay out the city as a grid, as many, sort of cities that are west, that are newer, that were developed in the automobile age, they could lay out in a grid. Trenton goes back to the 17th century, and our roads were based on those ancient travelways that were laid out by the Lenape tribes and by the early settlers in America. So we have network problems here. We're hoping to be able to distribute traffic. But if we are to achieve the economic benefits and the benefits to the city of Trenton of the economic development opportunity here and access to the riverfront, to a new riverfront park, then we need a way to cross 29. And the way to do that is to convert it into a boulevard. And so the economic benefits, we hope, will offset the opposition to adding a few minutes to your drive through the city. So that's our hope. It's a challenge. It will slow traffic on 29. It will improve other traffic conditions in the downtown. I hope that suffices.
And we got to think about the residents that need to go before commuters as well. And we want commuters to stay and invest in local businesses and spend your afternoon in Trenton, not leave at 5.
100%. Thanks, Matt and Sabrina. Can you talk a little bit more about the affordable housing and job growth potential for this project?
Yeah, I can take that one.
Go for it.
So a lot of this will fall into the hands of a couple people, the community to request specific things, but the people who can make it happen are your local elected officials. And there's many anti-displacement tools that can be used. What we can do for housing and affordable housing is expand and preserve it through zoning. So we can zone for what we want to see. Let's say for the future of this project, we want to reimagining by putting some housing where those parking lots are. And we would probably want to create some mixed use with market rate units and affordable housing units and businesses in the building as well, because we have to remember that the Trenton tax base is tricky since the government facilities don't pay taxes. But we can also work on opportunity housing. We can ensure that certain policies be put in place, such as tenant and community opportunities to purchase. We can go big. We can think about community land trust and housing trust funds as well. And for job growth. So there's things, again, that your local elected officials can do. So we can put in place local hiring ordinances. They sort of try to ensure that the economic benefits stay in a community and to provide opportunities for neighborhood small businesses. So those ordinances will require that a certain percentage of jobs from a development project, and it sometimes, particularly if it's funded by a local government or it's receiving government incentives, go to residents, which can also turn into an increase in the local spending at neighborhood businesses as well. We can also create legacy business programs. They're designed to preserve longtime businesses that contribute to a neighborhood's history, identity, character, and they can provide those small businesses with grants, technical assistance, even marketing and branding services as well. So those are some of the things that we can put in place to ensure affordability and job growth.
That's wonderful. Thanks.
I would add to that the development that is in Trenton's zoning, and this is an area in need of redevelopment. So the city has significant development control if it can exert that development control. Again, these are state-owned parking lots. One of the things we don't have to worry about here is displacement, because the displacement happened in the 1950s when the highway was built and when the state complex was expanded, when these surface parking lots were built. So that, you know, so mixed use, as Sabrina said, mixed use, mostly housing. There will have to be structured parking that can be used by the housing, you know, that not high rise. We don't know if it's high rise. Trenton's zoning code calls for high rise at the back of the area and sort of scaling down to the riverfront so that there are nice sight lines from dwelling units all along. But you know, we don't know what the market potential is here or how it will be developed. That's partly a negotiation with the city of Trenton. But mixed use, so we're expecting the housing to be able to support new retail and other services. And we are hoping that the development here can improve development in the surrounding parts of the downtown Trenton and the South Trenton neighborhoods. So displacement is not a problem. If we are really successful, then to a degree, gentrification in these neighboring residential areas may become an issue. I think that's something that we can hope for the city of Trenton so that they can improve their tax base.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about your work and outreach with residents in the Trenton community about the project?
Sure. I can say that, remember that Trenton residents have been promised this project before. So first we wanted to evaluate if residents even wanted this. So we started by doing a couple of focus groups. We even did one in Spanish. We talked to about maybe 40 residents and asked a couple of simple questions. So mainly, do you want this project and would you support it for the next 10 years? And 99% of them said yes. So then now we have to fund this, right? So New Jersey Future got a grant from Smart Growth America. It's called the Community Connectors Grant. It started about 2 years ago and it provided the funding to build a campaign. And we spent the first year and a half going into the community and talking to folks. We did about 3 big public engagement events. We built a website, campaign communication channels. We went to a bunch of community events, but for us, it's been very crucial to first build a support locally, get the community on board, backing this up and creating that ownership of this, talking to local elected officials, getting them to champion this. And now we are starting to talk to statewide partners so that they could support this as well. So in summary, you have to start by being present in the community, talking to as many people as possible, and like I said, creating ownership over this project, and also creating community trust, and also not promising what can't be done or what you're uncertain that can or can't be done. But you need partners like Mercer County that collaborate and are with you in every step of the way. So I'm super grateful for folks like Matt that want, for this project to happen and are there. With any idea you have, we were like, can we do a community event? And they're always, yes, we can do that. So a lot of partnerships, not only with community members, but also with government entities.
Mhm.
And I would add that New Jersey Future's efforts here with the Reconnecting Trenton's waterfront has been tremendous for us. The typical outreach for a transportation project like this is essentially 2 public meetings. We will have a final public meeting for this, presenting the preferred alternative, likely in January. And we still have a lot of work to do, but New Jersey Future's efforts have really enabled us to reach deeper into the community.
Wonderful. Yes, it's a team effort.
Yep.
We have time for a couple more questions. This may be for you, Matt. Any thought to having a pedestrian crossing via an overpass or tunnel? And with the inland route, what would be the quality of the parks within the street grid if they need to be retention basins?
That's a good question. One of the things that we need to understand is the size of these parcels. This is the parcel layout here is more or less, it's similar to the street grid within the city of Trenton. So these are about 300 by 300 foot blocks, which is typical of a dense urban area. I'm concerned, can we fit ball fields? Can we fit soccer fields? And in terms of park development, that's a really, really important question. Because of the flood hazard rules, if we build Memorial Drive here, as we're calling it, in the waterfront alignment, this would have to be elevated, that dry access for residential, for residents in the mixed use area. For the inland alignment, we will, there's the crossings are given by the traffic signals, but we would have walkways down from the elevated area down to the park or open space area at a relatively frequent basis, so that people from the city, from this development area, can get down to the park area. Tunnels, we played around with trying to decommission some of these overpasses and use the Route 29 southbound to Route 1 southbound ramp here as an overpass. It's just really challenging to turn a 35-foot wide piece of concrete into a reasonable walkway. So those, the crossings at the intersections in either alignment will allow pedestrian access to the river. Tunnels, I don't think so. I think it's more like ramps and stairs.
Time for one more question. If a resident or, county, town official, or even state legislator in their own town wants to replicate a smaller project like this, what would be the first step, and, who would be the stakeholders involved to reach out to?
I think that's a wonderful question, and it really starts with the local community. It starts with the community coming up with a vision for what they want to achieve. And this project was helped back in the 80s by the Capital City Redevelopment Corporation coming up with that plan. But having a vision and having the political will at the local level to pursue resources is really fundamental, because that enables you to make the investments in the planning studies that you have to do, the planning studies that are necessary before you can apply for a federal discretionary grant, before you can apply for municipal aid from NJDOT or county aid from NJDOT, basically the Transportation Trust Fund dollars that are available in New Jersey. So making those investments at the local level, and the county is doing that here. We are taking the federal formula dollars that would come to us in the city of Trenton, and we're applying that to this project. You know, there for local municipality, talk to your county. Counties are represented on the boards of their metropolitan planning organizations. NJTPA in the north, the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission for the 9 counties around Philadelphia, the South Jersey Transportation Planning Organization. These are the channels for federal dollars, formula dollars. Discretionary grants are very, very hard to win from the federal government. They are so competitive nationwide, and there are distribution criteria within those grants, that so much has to be rural, only so much can be urban, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of criteria. But building the political will is the place to start, and then beginning to look for grants, beginning to look for you know, safe streets to transit, safe streets to school. There's bikeways. There's a lot of state grant programs that can provide the initial steps to a project. A project of this scale is really hard, and you've seen in this presentation just how long we've been at it and how long we have yet to go. This is you know, we have some major hurdles to overcome, and as Sabrina says, this is a 10-year. We hope that we can keep this effort going and get through preliminary engineering in perhaps 3 years, get through final design in perhaps another 2.5 or 3 years, and then go to construction. And so construction, even in the best of all possible worlds for this project, is probably 10 years away. Transportation projects take so long. It's so frustrating. It's so bureaucratic. Ezra Klein's Abundance traces the problems that the United States has really well. And I encourage you readers to read that if they haven't yet.
Well, I think that is time. Matt and Sabrina, thank you so much for this presentation. Again, this is recorded. I will send over the recording along with any of the available resources, Matt and Sabrina, you would like to include. We didn't get to answer some of the questions, so we can send over some of those, the kind of a Q&A, questions answered and also questions unanswered. Send those answers over to you also in that email. And if it's okay, Matt and Sabrina, to send your contact information in that email in case anybody has any extra questions or so forth. But thank you guys so much. This was great. And yeah, look out for the email. And again, if you have any questions, let us know. And we're, you know, excited to push this forward. Hopefully, you know, we can get it in a decade. This is really important for our capital, for Trenton, on a myriad of issues. So thank you both so much for your effort on this.
Very
Thank
welcome.
you, everyone.
Yep.
All right. Well, everybody have a great night. Take care.
All right.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.